All right, everybody, welcome to Knox Makers. This is Tuesday. Every Tuesday we like to do a show and share. That's where you show off projects you worked on, things you personally did, or whether they're successful or not. We like fails as well. We have a sign-up list, and so we're going to get started on that. First up is Joe Pardue, who's going to talk about paper mache masks.
So in case anybody walked in with their eyes closed and didn't notice, we're running a paper mache class out front. And today, it's a three-part class. First part is we make a mold of our face. And you see I can continue to talk with it on there, but I can't breathe. Anyway, so this is part of the way through. And what we're going to do next is we're going to put casting fabric in here, and that'll make a form that from that point on will be roughly the shape of our face that we'll be able to build masks on. And the good thing about this is, like, my head and my face is not symmetrical. So this makes a perfect fit to an asymmetrical face. And, you know, some people are more symmetrical, and you could probably buy one off the shelf that would work. This cat is like an experiment right now. The eyes are terrible. I'm going to cut them out. I had trouble finding an X-Acto knife, but I'm going to cut them out and put them back in where they're shiny. And anyway, this it's a little damp still, but it kind of fits. But I was disappointed because it's a Halloween. It's a black cat, but I got a gray beard sticking out the bottom. So I don't like that. So probably next time I would extend the muzzle down a little bit, you know, to cover the hair. There were several of the board members who are too busy herding cats on Tuesday couldn't take the class, so they talked me into offering it again this coming up Monday, and there'll be 3 Mondays in a row. And one of them encouraged as many people want to come as possible, because the more the merrier and all that. I think up to a limit of 8. And I will pass this around, and the whiskers are made out of broom straw. I got the broom out there. And any questions? No questions.
Thank you, Joe. Next up is Thea with Embroidery.
I'm short. A lot of times the stuff coming out of fabric arts is mostly sewing. And a couple of weeks ago we had a lovely example of needlepoint. So today I'm talking about Hardanger embroidery. It's a specific type of embroidery that's mostly these large flat satin stitches. And most of it is exactly like this. This is a fairly traditional example where you have similar colors to your background, and the only difference is the sheen of the pearl cotton. This one is a solid work piece where it's mostly just the satin stitches. More traditionally, you work in these squares, and then you actually cut out in between the squares, and then you can do a little detailed work where it's all woven together. So this one is filled with emery sand to sharpen and deburr your needles. And then this is a non-traditional use. You can see I did completely different coloring. It's all, go back out. It was a hand-dyed ombre. It's still the same type of material, and you can have some of the detailed work in the top. But it's all colorful, and there's almost no contrast with your base. It's just design work. So compare that to what most people are more familiar with. That's just a little cross-stitch piece I did in about a half an hour on the front, a half an hour on the back, and then it probably took just as long to put it all together. These other pieces took a lot more time, and when your squares don't end up lining up, you have to take the whole thing out and start over again. Lots of unpicking. Any questions?
Do you use like a magnifying glass or go into electronics and microscope or how do you see that?
Actually, it's not so common these days now that we go to LEDs, but in the older incandescent light bulbs, a lot of times when you're trying to match colors like this one where your colors are almost identical on it, you couldn't get a real color read based on a traditional light bulb. So a long time ago, a brand came out where they did true to light bulbs for crafters, and almost all of those stands have a built-in magnifier. So I do have basically a magnifier right over my chair that I use to pick out knit stitches, crochet stitches when I screw up. And yeah, I can do, especially these, they're fairly loose weave. You can, if you actually have them in front of you, you can see the stitches. They're not really small, but yeah, if I need to double check a count, I do use a lighted magnifier. Yeah. I think.
What kind of fabric is that you're face?
Most of them are linens because they're a looser weave than a cotton.
What's the difference between a cotton and a wet viscose weave?
Cotton, when you actually look at the fabric, cotton is more of an even weave. Linen, this is very much more typical. Let me zoom back in. Where you can see that it's not even. You get a smaller stitch and then where your threads overlap because they're kind of looser spun. So that's the big difference in linen is you get a little more irregularity so it looks more home done and not quite as commercial. All right.
Thank you. Those are beautiful. It's a good lead up to next Saturday. There's a Fiber Arts Q&A session where you come and get help. I think there's going to be a few people here. Are you going to be here, Thea?
Yeah, there's going to be at least 2 of us.
At least 2 of you here to help with any questions that people have, projects they're working on. Next up is Ray, who has swag for Isaac.
Keep you in suspense for just a few minutes. We were short on show and shares. So rather than just give this to Isaac, I thought I'd do a show and share. So I went to a trade show out in San Jose back in April, and it's one of these real high-frequency trade shows with $1 million scopes and arbs and stuff like this. All this really high-frequency, kind of high-end test equipment. And I look over in the distance, and I see this big Regal sign. My first thought was, what the heck are those guys doing here? They don't make anything like that. My second thought was, oh, I wonder if I can get any swag for Isaac. He would love it. So I went down there, and the booth was relatively empty. This was not their kind of show, but they talked to me for hours. They pinned me down forever. So Isaac, I know how much you love Regal, and you like for everything to match. I think you won't even buy equipment that's not Regal at home, right, because it wouldn't match. So, I noticed when I landed, it is raining. So for you, my friend, for all you have done for Knox Makers, we thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Ray. Next up is Russell. I have no idea what he has.
Billy knows. Barbecue. That's right. I brought dinner for everybody. Okay. Excuse my hoarseness, little sinus action, so if I go blank, then I guess we're all better off. But first, I want to thank everybody for the terrific lamps that were presented last week that started out as something else, and then lo and behold, it was a lamp. And it made my day, my week, and I just want to publicly thank you all and let you know how much I appreciate it. Also, thank you, Rob, for embroidering my shirt. He spent a lot of time to make that happen, and I appreciate it. I'll take this off and pass it around now. No. Now, ladies, calm down. Now, to the real show and share. Yes, it's a lamp. Nah, Billy would have never guessed that. Rob gave me this bottle, gee whiz, a year ago. It's been a long time. And so, oh man, we're missing parts. Here we go, sorry. I'll still try to keep it under my 3 minutes. A lamp has to have a light bulb, right? So cigar box. And this did just stop here to hold the lamp, and I thought it just didn't do it for me, so I went ahead and added this piece so we could add a lamp. So I got a switch down here for the light, and then a turn knob here to light the bottle up. And it's made so that he can put the full bottle here. And I'm waiting for him, instead of bringing empty bottles, to bring me full bottles. I don't understand why he hasn't done that. But anyway, nevertheless, that's the lamp that belongs to Rob. I'm glad Russell's not here tonight, because I had his lamp almost finished. Does anybody know what happens if you hook up a 120 volt to 12 volt DC transformer backwards? Yeah, blue smoke, orange fire, awful noises, and the smell. Yeah, it was a lamp for about that long. But an arc lamp, yeah. So nevertheless, we got to wait for a new transformer to come in before we can finish Russell's lamp. So, any questions?
How long did it take?
Oh gosh.
Did you do a time study?
I should do a time study, Tracy's time study. When I read that thing, I literally laughed out loud. I'm going to have to start doing that, because I don't know how long this took, because I've been working on it for weeks. So, sorry, I don't know. Yes?
What kind of booze is that? That's a full bottle.
Rob?
It's a rum.
It's a
I
rum?
figured it had to be a rum. It looks very piratey, but.
I like the bottle, so the rum was okay.
Yeah. It says bamboo rum. Bamboo rum.
I love rum.
Yeah. All righty then. I think my talking is about done now. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Rob.
All right, thank you, Russell. Last up on the list is Toby, who's going to show off printed toys.
No, it's not. So, I've actually tried a couple of things. This one's actually with my clear resin, so I made a little owl. This is actually resin printed, 3D printed. So, and of course I will pass that around, no problem. And if it does drop on the concrete, it will shatter like glass. But that's okay, because I've printed a couple of those. That actually took about 7.5 hours. So the other thing that I've done, as a joke, I made a sticker a while back. And this sticker, yes, is actually half giraffe, half elephant. Does it really matter? It's girelephant. That was the dad joke out of the sticker. I know, it's a bad joke. So, the thing about it is, I now have a 3D printed girelephant that I took, And this actually took 12 hours to print. So I'm actually proud of it. Next thing I need to do is I need to make a mold of it, cast it, and make it into a little squishy or something like that, like a stress one.
You're related to Dr. Seuss?
It looks very Dr. Seuss-ish, yes. Is that a word? I don't know.
How'd you model it?
I actually modeled it in mesh mixer, because I took a giraffe and an elephant, took just the schnoz on him and added it to there, but I went ahead and fluffed him out to be kind of cartoonish and a little elephant-ish for that. And then, of course, I shortened the antlers and made them more cartoonish.
Pull your phone out and show the interiors.
I do have a few interims. And I do not like the interims, but
I've come up with a few more cross-bite animals.
you mean like wuzzles?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, that would be one of my sisters. So when I first started working with it, he was, well, so that's the original sticker, and yes, I have actually made stickers of it. Then I went ahead and and that was after I took the giraffe and stuck the nose on it, which looks more like a horse. So there's actually a better view of it. So I added a little bit to the base on the body, made him out to there, lopped off his legs, made them fat, and I didn't like the antennas being too long, so I went ahead and shortened them up and ended up with the final product there. So I will go ahead and pass this around too. And this is solid resin as well.
Do you have to smooth that down after it's built?
After you resin, get back up here. After you make a resin print on a resin printer, you do have to wash it in isopropyl alcohol to get all the resin chemicals off of it. And then you put it in front of the UV lamp to go ahead and make sure everything is cured and dry and so forth afterwards.
You don't have to use any kind of smoothing sand?
No, that's the only thing that I have done is, I believe I've got a few photos of, let's see, camera. I've got a few in betweens. So here's one of the in between. Actually, this is when it was pulled right out of the resin printer. So with all the supports and everything. So the printer actually does one layer, pulls it out of the resin, does another layer, and so forth until it makes it completely solid. So that is actually the correct way it pulls it out. So it actually prints it upside down. So, and those are all there's a lot of supports that, and since they taper at the very top, they're easy to just pull off. That's it. That's what
Thank you, Toby. That's all I have on the list. Anybody else that didn't get on? Yep.
I've got two things. First of all, last time I got here, my part broke just before I got on the thing, so I went back and beefed it up and made my inner diameter a little bit wider so it wasn't putting so much stress, and took out some of this thing here, and so got it nice. And then last week we did some single point threading on the lathe, and we threaded this to put on those screw knobs. So I think it looks real nice now. Let's see how to do Y. Like that. All right, so that's this thing. First thing, what I wanted to show today is my son meets with a D&D group, and he wanted to make something for the group, and he wanted to make some coasters. So we found this image, and then we divided it all up into the individual parts. Then got like one individual one there, which is a raster image. We brought it into Inkscape and converted it into an SVG, which looked like that. It loses a little bit of detail, like there's no notch on the top of that R, but overall it's pretty good. Then you can bring that into OpenSCAD, and that'll import an SVG as a two-dimensional shape. You can then extrude it, which gives it some thickness. Then you can take that, and we got a disc that was like 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters, and I think it's 6 thick. And then you put one out and subtract the one from the other, and that makes a coaster like that. So I then took and printed that out, and it came out like this. Then it was all white, so I decided I would try to color it. And unfortunately, the paint sometimes it goes and it diffuses into the print, so that did not work as well as I'd wanted. And I tried putting some white over there, and it just didn't work. On subsequent runs, I found that I could stop the print when it was right to this layer, and then I could paint the base and then have it print up over top of it, and it worked a lot better. And then lastly, designed this holder for all of them, and came up with this. So I'll just show quickly the different ones. Each one of these is like an hour and a half of printing, so this took 4 bloody ever. But that's all. Any questions? All right, thank you. Go ahead. I think I got it, as long as I don't drop them.
Right. All right, thank you. Any more? Going once, twice sold. All right. We have quite a few events on the calendar right now, if you haven't looked lately. Tonight was a paper mache mask making that Joe was doing out here. You probably saw it as you were coming in. That's a 3-part series. He's also submitted a class to start on next Monday. That will also be a 3-part series, and so if Tuesdays are bad days for you, you can sign up on Monday, and then every Monday for three weeks, right? Because it takes 3 weeks to do each step of the process, because there's drying time. This Thursday at 7 is a new members onboarding. If you are new or are getting started in membership with Knox Makers, the new members onboarding is required. It happens twice a month, once on a Thursday and once on a Tuesday. And so this coming Thursday is the next new members onboarding. If you need that, make sure you get it. This Saturday at 7 is a mortise and tenon joinery class that I believe Brian is doing. Is that right? I think so. And so it's been a while since we've had that class, so very excited to have that. Make sure you grab that if you can. And then next week on Wednesday is a woodworking 101 class. That's the authorization class for woodworking. Be sure and grab that if you need it. And then next Saturday is the Fiber Arts Q&A session that I mentioned. There'll be a couple people here to answer any questions, help you with any projects that you're doing in Fiber Arts Zone. And then there's an intro to electronics, I think as Ray is doing, on next Saturday as well. And that'll be here. Beyond next week, our calendar has MIG welding, laser cutting, brazing. There's a schematics and breadboarding class and a metal flower class. I want to look more into that. That looks interesting. That's the classes that are happening this month. Our calendar is loaded. Be sure and grab the class. I noticed some of the later classes are starting to sell out, so make sure you grab those if you want them. I need volunteers to take out the trash. Can I get a volunteer? Someone? Yep. If you're new and you are unfamiliar with the process of the trash and the filters, then maybe you can shadow one of the people doing it. Changing the filters. So, yep, right here. Okay. As you might have noticed, we have new ductwork in the classroom. I worked really hard on that all day long. Actually, Billy facilitated that, getting the quotes and getting someone here to work on it. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is the first Tuesday we've not turned the air conditioning off in a long time. It has really helped with the sound, and so I thank you, Billy, for working on that.
Someone here tomorrow at 9 o'clock, they said the AC about another hour or so.
Yeah, so the AC guy has about another hour of work, wants to be here tomorrow at 9. We don't currently have someone who can babysit that. If you are willing, maybe talk to Billy after this. Also, if you have not reserved the day October 16th, then you should do so. That is the spook show that Isaac is going to put on for us. That's going to happen at Central Cinema. If you've not been to one of his spook shows before, I highly recommend it. So please reserve that date and show up. It's free for members. Yes? Central Cinema. It is, anybody want to explain where that is?
Happy Holler, it's on Central Street. If you're familiar with Happy Holler at all, there's the Central Filling Station Food Truck Park. It's a little north of that. If you know where the Time Warp Tea Room used to be, it's right next door.
We can get you an address.
Flats and Taps.
We'll get you an address. We'll post it on the Mattermost. But all members are welcome to come at no cost. You will be able to buy concessions there, but your entrance is free. Did I get all that right? And your guests. Bring a guest. Yeah. And costumes are highly recommended. And amazing. That is all the announcements that I have. And so now we're just going to go out in the workshop and play around. If you are new and need a tour or have questions, you can see me or anyone with a red badge, and we'll get them answered. All right. Thanks.